I am well aware that this video may not spread as well, and I am going to make it anyway. When I go to events or when I speak with people, one of the things that people express that they appreciate is my willingness to talk about mental health. And the thing is, I didn't choose to talk about it. It chose me. Howdy everyone, Nate here. I am not licensed about anything in this video. I have just learned some things along the way and I wanted to have a real conversation with you. So go ahead and grab a mug of something warm and let's talk. I do also need to give a forewarning about the topics that I'll be sharing in this video. Maybe grab a seat before you watch this one. I'm going to start off by sharing a story. I've recently had a conversation with a beautiful person. This person was expressing how she had often worked with depression and anxiety and experienced a lot of those things in her life. Now, this person's content was some of the most beautiful content I have ever experienced, without exaggeration. She seemed to understand deeper. Her viewers would experience this beautiful video that she produced and realize there is more to me, there's more depth, and acknowledge the things that they were either afraid of acknowledging or just simply weren't aware were inside of them until she shared it. And as I was having this conversation with this person, I just kept thinking, please don't stop. Please keep going. You see, now taking this story to myself here, briefly what I have experienced is severe depression and anxiety, plans to stop existing. And I've also experienced counseling and therapy in various forms. And along the way, I have learned some pretty important things. Now again, remember, I'm not a therapist here. These are just some things that I have experienced from going through those deep valleys and applying it to the world of content creation, to you. First, when I was first experiencing these severe bouts of depression and basically not wanting to exist anymore, I found myself repeatedly going to the space of trying to identify why the heck this was even happening and fix it. And while of course we always hope, and I continue to hope, that I can fix this mental illness, I also reached a point after experiencing this cycle again and again where I realized, what if I thought about this differently? If I was in an accident, for example, and I lost my arm, what would I do about that? Would I keep approaching it and hoping that I could grow back my arm to return to some form of normalcy in my life? Would I keep doing that? And as I looked at that, I realized that my approach to this mental space that I was experiencing was very similar to that. I kept hoping that I was going to regrow my arm. And while of course we hope that science does reach that point, and maybe they already have in some forms, it's still not generally available to the general public. So I realized if this is the case, and I'm metaphorically missing an arm with my mental health here, if I'm just not able to approach the world the same normal or neurotypical way that the average person, I keep doing air quotes here because really is there an average person? But if I'm not able to approach the world like the so-called average person because I'm missing an arm or I have this mental condition, I need to approach the world differently. I realized that far more effective use of my time and focus was to go forward to saying, well, I am now missing an arm. What am I going to do differently? And I found that when I started looking at it that way, it created a whole new world of possibilities for me. Continuing with the analogy, I could find a bionic arm. I could create my own arm. I could also adapt such that I only need to do things that are one-handed. None of the adaptations that I needed to do to deal with this mental crises, so to speak, were necessarily convenient because they weren't necessarily designed for that situation. But that was okay. And approaching it as such allowed me to think outside the box and realize, you know what, I'm not normal. I just have a different set of options than the supposed neurotypical person has. The next big thing I have learned from this, as a creator especially, is when I was experiencing these difficult times where I felt like I could not get up in the morning, I could not create a video, I couldn't record a video, there was just no way I could do it. I realized that one of the main issues I was facing was I felt like I couldn't identify it. I couldn't see it. And if I couldn't see it or identify it, it felt like a looming thing that was just affecting me and I couldn't fight back or at least identify and go around it. So how did I adapt there? I thought, you know what, if I stub my toe, I apologize for all these analogies of physical harm. It was my way of identifying what was going on up here by putting it into more of my body and understanding what was going on there. But again, let's say if I stub my toe, what am I feeling? I'm feeling severe pain and or stress because I can't think about anything else for a moment while I stop everything and curse out the chair leg. But with stubbing a toe, you're able to identify where it is. You're able to identify the source of that. And you're also able to identify that it is pain. So I realized if I looked at this mental cloud, this stuff that was happening for me, and I called it pain, I identified it as pain, it allowed me to specify and put it in its location and say, hello, you are pain. I can breathe through pain. I can experience pain, and I can realize that I am separate from that pain. But before we get there, I needed to acknowledge what's going on for me right now. I wrote down the idea for this video months ago, but each time the idea came up, I thought, you know what? Nobody's actually going to want that. It's not strategic. It's not directly about YouTube growth. A large variety of excuses or reasons why I didn't publish this video until now, but that led to me now realizing, you know what? This is more than just strategy. It's more than just a YouTube platform. It is about creators. It is about the creator as a whole. It's about you. You are a whole person. And I would be doing myself a disservice as well as a disservice to you if I didn't acknowledge that and talk about the stuff that very few people talk about. And that is partially why I have made other videos addressing questions that aren't often talked about by creators. But I'll point you to that video here in a bit. The next major thing I have learned is that I am not the black cloud, the thing that is keeping me from being my highest, best, brightest self. The mental barriers, the mental health, you put the name on it for yourself, but you and we are not that black cloud. We are separate from it. In fact, at an event last year, I went to dinner with some old friends and some new friends, and this topic came up, and the way I described it there was, it is and you are. They are two separate things. So when I was experiencing one of these black cloud moments, I was able to step back and say, hold on, I am independent of this experience that is happening in my life. I am separate from it. It is, and I am. And there's actually a book I'm going to recommend that really helped with this process. I put it in my year template. If you've watched that video, if you haven't yet, I'm going to recommend that you watch that video. But the book is called The Untethered Soul. And I believe that book is by the author Michael Singer. And in it, he describes the concept of consciousness being separate from the experiences that we are having. It explained it in such a way that it finally sunk in for me. That book had a huge impact on me along my journey. So here we're brought to the what to do about this. As a content creator, the major thing that I have found, and I'm speaking for myself, as well as having hundreds of conversations with creators like yourself, the major thing that I have found grates on people is the grind, the constant need to produce content when you're not getting results or when you are getting results and it just doesn't feel fulfilling anymore. Sometimes you need to make videos or do projects just because you want to, just because it feeds your soul. I had a conversation recently with Aprilyn Alter, a creator who I consider to be doing this exceptionally well. And during that conversation, we discussed a video that she had just published as of the conversation. And she said, you know what? I knew that video wasn't going to spread as much, but I made it anyway. So for you and I, as creators, as human beings, sometimes you got to work with what you have. If the analogy is, we've got to keep these plates spinning in the air, and if we don't, then some will drop and break. So be it. Sometimes you got to drop and break some plates and be okay with that. Because especially if you can find a bionic arm, and when you first put that bionic arm on, you can bet you're going to drop some plates. Or even if you can't find a bionic arm right now, you can just be. So I want you to carry on because you are doing a great job.